At the start of the campaign, we invited each major party leader to do 3 feature interviews over the course of the election campaign. We've already done 1 with each, and tonight we have our second with the Prime Minister, Julia Gillard, which we recorded in Newcastle late this afternoon. Julia Gillard, the Reserve Bank has done the right thing by you and kept interest rates on hold today. The alternative would have been electoral disaster, given where your campaign is right now. I would think the sceptics would say more good luck than good management, because there are parts of the economy that are flat, as in consumer spending, retails, and of course the rest of the developed world economies, the major developed world's economy, are also struggling.
Well, look, Kerry, the Reserve Bank sets interest rates independently, and the Reserve Bank Governor, Glenn Stevens, made it very, very publicly known that if he thought interest rates needed to go up, he wasn't going to worry that the election campaign was in progress. He was going to do what he thought was the right thing by the economy. But of course we got an inflation number which was within the Reserve Bank's target band. Now, this is in fair, sharp contrast to circumstances when we came into government and inflation was running at 16-year highs. We then set about investing in and expanding the capacity of the economy, skills and infrastructure. Then we had the global financial crisis. We had to take a set of decisions to support jobs. What I think is now front and centre of this election campaign is who is better equipped to make the economic choices the nation needs. I would say for this government, when disaster threatened with the global financial crisis, we made the better economic choices, and for the future, we've got the better economic plan.
And of course, there are those who would say, including some leading economists, that if the American and European economies turn sour next year, and the remains of your stimulus packages are either petering out or have petered out, that you'll have no more petrol in the tank for a second round of recession.
Well, I think when we look at the global economy, yes, there are signs of fragility and things that are concerning. But if we look at the outlook here in this country, we've got economic stimulus moving out of the system. There's still some stimulus in there now, but it's tapering out, as is appropriate. When we look at our own economy with unemployment at 5.1%, what I think we can look forward to is coming out of this global economic shock stronger than any other major advanced economy in the world. Now, I think we went into this with some natural advantages, that is true, but the government made the right decisions in a tough time. If we'd taken Mr Abbott's advice, we'd be in a deep recession with 200,000 extra Australians unemployed. Kerry, you and I wouldn't be talking now about the outlook for the economy. We would be picking through the rubbles of the recession. That's because we made the better economic choices our economy is in this state, and this campaign, I believe, has at its centre who's got the plan going forward. I believe I do. Budget to surplus, investing in infrastructure, national broadband, investing in skills, superannuation, company tax reduction,
all
small business breaks. That's the plan for the future.
But all of that represents a real political puzzle. The government narrative, first under Kevin Rudd, now you, is that you saved Australia from crippling recession. That's your narrative. That we are the standout economy in the developed world. You've just said it all. Yet Rudd's been thrown out by his own party before the electorate could. You now face potential defeat yourself, and opinion polls say the public believes the coalition will manage the economy better. Now, either the electorate is gullible, or the government is not as good as it says, or you're a communications disaster zone. So, which is it, and how on earth do you turn those perceptions around in a couple of weeks?
Well, I believe, Kerry, what you do is you're out there, I'm out there now, talking about the things I believe in, talking about the decisions we made, but talking about our plans for the future. Now, I am the first to acknowledge that not everything went according to plan for the government. Some things went off track. I've been very frank about that.
Well, the point is that Kevin Rudd before you, with Wayne Swan then, Wayne Swan now with you, it's all been the same message. We saved Australia from a disastrous recession. But the public, having heard all this coming from you for more than a year, believes that the other side are better economic managers.
Well, and it is my task, Kerry, and I accept it, to explain to the Australian people what the real choice is on the 21st of August. And I'm not going to the Australian people saying, well, look at what was done after the global financial crisis and don't look at anything else. I think people should look at that, but I think people will judge on the economic plan going forward.
How credible is it, just a couple of months after the budget, in the midst of a troubled election campaign, to have to raid the coffers of Medibank Private to the tune of $300 million to pay for your promises?
Well, we've been advised, of course, by Medibank Private that this dividend can be paid and that they've got sufficient reserves so that Medibank Private can keep doing what it does, providing health insurance to people.
But the point is this, you've had to go to them. I mean, I'd say cap in hand, maybe it's not quite cap in hand, but you've had to go to them in an election campaign. This is very last-minute stuff. What does it say about your economic planning, your planning even of your election promises, that you've suddenly had to nick over the road to Medibank Private and say, can we have 300 mil?
Well, Kerry, I'm happy to talk about our economic planning and how we're dealing with expenditure matters in this campaign. And I'll address that matter. We've been advised by Medibank Private that this dividend is possible. Now, we are going to use that dividend as part of our commitment to make sure nothing we promise in this campaign adds a cent to the budget bottom line. And we are putting in our promises for costing. We're publishing daily figures where we are with expenditure and where we are with savings. Mr Abbott, he's got $20 billion of promises out there. Less than 10% have been submitted for proper costing, and he hasn't put any of the big ticket items in for proper costing. He could be hundreds of millions of dollars out on the education tax rebate or his paid parental leave scheme, or both of them. And I think, it is appropriate, and Mr Abbott does have to be challenged to put in his policies for proper costing. What is he running scared of?
The political wisdom of the past to do with election campaigns is that the most a leader can expect to move public opinion over the course of a campaign, the 5-6 weeks of a campaign, is 2, at the absolute most, maybe 3%. Labor's primary vote hemorrhaged 6% in 1 week last week. I can't think of that ever happening before in an election campaign. Is that why you suddenly want another debate after refusing Tony Abbott's challenge to have 3?
I've certainly said that I'm moving away from the traditional playbook of Australian politics as to how we run election campaigns. And, it's not just the Labor Party. There is a general philosophy in both political parties that you have a media event, you try and get your message for the day up, you're very risk-averse, you don't do too much. That's how Mr Abbott's running his campaign.
But you've had a shock, haven't you?
Well, look, I wanted to change that style. And yes, if we face difficulties in this...
You've had a shock.
No,
haven't you?
Kerry, do you want?
Yes, I have, Kerry.
Do you want me to acknowledge that last week was a very difficult week for us? It was a very difficult week.
To the tune of 6% of your primary vote gone in a blink.
Well, look, I'm not going to comment on the polls, but Kerry, I'm also not going to sit here and try and defy simple reality with you. Yes, we had a very, very, very hard week.
Well,
as we close out on election day, I've decided that requires election campaigning. My style is for me to be out there talking to people, putting the things I believe in, showing more of myself. Now, having had a bad week...
So when you say putting the things I believe in, immediately implies that you haven't been putting the things you believe. Well, of course it does.
No, showing more of myself, Kerry. So it's not a question of I've been saying things other than what I believe. No one makes words come out of my mouth except me. But in this election campaign, there's the received traditional wisdom about how you run them. In fact, people would say, as times get tougher, get more risk-averse. I'm doing the reverse. I'm actually going to be out there doing the interviews, putting the story here with you, making sure that we're prosecuting our case as far and wide as we can.
I'll come back to the style in a moment, but at the moment I'd like to stay on credibility. One of the things you promised on becoming leader was proper cabinet consultation. You've since repeated that promise, yet one of the centrepieces of your new climate policy, building on top of what you already had, a citizens' assembly was not taken to cabinet for discussion